Well, I'm Troy Hughes, I'm the fire chief, and this is our third meeting on the fire station. We've really gotten some good feedback. I think we had about 35 people at the last meeting, so we got a lot of good feedback there. Similar numbers at the first meeting. When we started this project, I think if it would have been up to me, I would have said, well, let's just build it where it's at. It works. Our guys like it. They really like the interaction. But I think in anything government, we want to take looks at some other places. And in this particular situation with Fire Station 4, that station has a kind of specific response district that it covers today. And then without moving all the other stations, it kind of still has to maintain that same district. So when we look at what's available in that area, there wasn't a whole lot of fish in that sea. So we looked at the 3 spots, and we probably had our favorite going into it, which was the existing, for a lot of reasons. And what we've seen so far is both of the first 2 public meetings have been overwhelming for that site. And then the survey is the same way. I think we're nearing 200 people taking the survey, and we're at 92% are all for the existing site. And so as the fire chief, when I go to council on November 12th, which is going to be the next meeting on this, that's going to be my strong recommendation. But you all showing up here at this meeting and the last one and the one before and doing the survey, that all makes me a lot more credible. When I go in there and I haven't done this work and looked at alternatives and had the public come and participate, I'm pretty credible, I think, in their eyes, but I'm even more credible when I have an audience of people that back me up when I say, let's go to this site and this is why, and then I have people like you. So thanks for being here. I hope that you come on the 12th, which is what we're tentatively scheduled for in the council meeting, and just be there in support. So when I get up and say, hey, council, this is what I recommend, that's where we're going with this. Unless tonight you're all here for a different reason, because I don't want to prejudge why you're here to convince me to do something different on the 12th, but that's what we're going to do. We're going to recommend Site A. A lot of reasons, talking to our guys before we started this process, they said, we love having the public come by on the trail. A lot of times they come inside, you show the kids the fire trucks, we talk about what we're going to cook for supper, we get recipes, and we trade back and forth. So they love that interaction with the public, and I don't think either one of those other sites would have provided that for us, because there's just not a paved trail, there's not the interaction. We've got access to the road out there, which is great. Again, the visibility is really good when we enter that roadway to go help somebody. We don't want to cause another accident when we're going to one. So there's a lot of reasons that site's good, but I think this process, even though many of us probably knew what the answer would be before we started it, was a good process. And we do need you guys as public to come in there and back us up. I've been chief for a little over right at 13 years now here, and I've had a lot of different people on the council, but I've never had them once when we've gone through a process like this and I go in and recommend something with a lot of good background, and I get the county manager who's also going to recommend this same site and is 100% on board with this recommendation. I've never had them go, oh no, we're going to do something different. So if that's a fear of anybody in here, I can almost guarantee you that won't happen. And they'll back us up and they'll do what we need to do. And David's going to talk to you a little bit about costs and some of those things. And we think the costs are pretty similar no matter where we build it, because there's a lot of challenges in each area. But that's what we're going to recommend on the 12th. Unless you guys want to convince all of us to do something different than that, we're going to do that. And I think, again, thank you for being here. If you can show up on the 12th, I don't think we're going to need a tremendous amount of support, but I think it's still important to say, hey, we care about Los Alamos, we care about what happens in our neighborhood, and just be there for that reason to back us up when this team here goes up in front of council and says, here's what we're going to do, and we want you to support us and just be there. So I'll kick it off and let David do the show. Some of you may have not been here before, so he's going to give you a little bit of that stuff. But if you have, feel free to ask questions.
Okay, thank you, Chief Hughes. My name is David Grooms of Vega Architecture. I recognize some of you, a few new faces. As Chief Hughes said, this is our third community meeting intended to get community feedback for these 3 sites. We'll kind of touch on a few of the basic points that we've touched on in previous meetings. We'll present a couple new exhibits showing proximity of these fire stations, but also want to be here to answer any questions that you might have. And again, thank you guys for your turnout and your participation. It's really been, we do a lot of these community meetings, and the effort the county's put on to gather this community feedback has really been strong, and the community response has really been supportive as well. So we appreciate that. Okay, really quickly, what we hope to go through today is, we'll do a very brief introduction, and then we're going to go through the 3 sites that are under consideration, and then we'll discuss, have a session for questions and discussions. We'd like to hopefully get the majority of the questions and discussions towards the end. However, if I say something that you don't understand, or if I mumble, a sentence, please feel free to raise your hand, and we can deal with that. Again, this hits several of the strategic goals and priorities of the county: environmental stewardship, operational excellence, and quality of life. This is the 3rd neighborhood meeting. We had first one on September 23rd, second one on December 15th, and then the next meeting is the county council presentation. Again, we're in the site selection phase of the overall project schedule. And then we wanted quickly to show the survey results. The survey has been reopened. That closes on the 30th of October. There will be a link, a QR code at the end of this presentation that you can scan. I know we've already received a lot of additional participation over the weekend. Still heading in the same direction that it was last time, and we have not incorporated those new results into this presentation. But we do encourage you and people you know to utilize that survey. Really quick, the highlights, are preserving open space, quick response time, building sustainably, potential traffic impacts, neighborhood noise levels, and health and safety of our fire personnel were really the top 6 standouts. And then this question was, which of these 3 proposed county-owned sites do you prefer for the new fire station? Again, as you can see, I think at the point we did this, we're at 91% preferred site A, which is the existing fire station site. I think we're now up to 92%. Yes?
Could you just remind me which is Loma Linda and which is the golf course maintenance, B and C?
Yes. Perfect segue.
Oh.
So
Just have to wait for one more slide.
we added one new kind of overall exhibit, and this is also a zoning exhibit. But this shows the site A, which is directly adjacent to the existing fire station. Site B is the golf course maintenance facility at the end of the golf course. And then site C is the one that's in the next to Loma Linda, right up there. We also wanted to show this exhibit to help understand kind of the zoning that is required in each one of these. Site A, the majority of Site A, where the existing fire station is located, is already zoned institutional. It looks like there's a decent chance that we may need to do a lot line adjustment and move this northwestern lot line out a bit so that we can build the new fire station while keeping the existing fire station operational. If we do that, there would be a rezoning process for this portion, presumably to make that portion institutional. Then we would obviously leave the rest of the site zoned as passive open space. Site B is located in an area zoned active open space. And then Site C is in an area zoned as public parks open space. Any questions on this real quick before I move on? Okay. So we're going to look at 3 slides for each one of the sites. Some of these you've seen before. There's a couple that are new that show proximities to adjacent houses. But this is the existing fire station right here. This is the existing fire station annex. Obviously Diamond Drive is right here. As you'll see in the subsequent slides, we are thinking about placing the new fire station approximately right here. Now, the site selection process is very conceptual. Once a site is chosen by council, we will be doing a deep dive into that site and double checking making sure that is the right placement for it. There has been conversation about placing it down there, but there's some sewage lift stations and some other desires for the annex building that might push it up to the north. This is a proximity study for Site A, showing the approximate distance between where we're showing the future fire station and the nearest house. In this case, it is about 477 feet away. And then this is the conceptual site plan for Site A. So again, you can see the existing fire station down here, and then a proposed new fire station approximately right here. You also notice that in this scenario, we really aren't disturbing any of the existing trails. There's a footpath that kind of works through here that I think is developed organically over time that might need some adjustment. But the main trail should remain untouched. We're also trying to find a way to place some additional parking there for trail usage over next to the annex building.
So the footprints shown, are they the buildings or are they the actual effect of the development? Typically where a building wall is, you got a lot more that goes beyond it that disturbs what goes beyond it.
Right. So this light gray box is the footprint of the building.
So the effect would be you're pretty close to that trail.
We are. So this line right here it's labeled LOD. It's probably hard to read right here, but that's our anticipated limits of disturbance. Now, depending on how we do the site, it could change. But the plan is for this site was that we have quite a depression here in the existing grade. We'd be bringing in a lot of fill, but due to the existing grade, with a combination of retaining walls and we have an opportunity to create some storage underneath that space, which we'll talk about a little bit more in the conceptual budget slide. But in this version, because we are going so vertical with those back walls, we think we can constrain the limit of disturbance more than you'll see in the other sites.
The idea would be to relocate and rebuild the trail, part of the trail that's all in the disturbed area?
Well, yeah, right now the existing trail is kind of hugging the perimeter of that.
It looks like it's inside you, what you just said was the disturbed area.
Right, yeah, again, this isn't, we're close, but this is not exact at this point. But I guess the big point is, I think it's well within reason to think that there's a chance that we won't have to disturb that trail at all. If we did, because of the realities of engineering and construction, if we did have to, we would certainly make sure that trail was operational.
You can probably do it, but you need to take that into account. It's important, I think.
Right, exactly. I think that's what we're trying to say. Okay, Site B is the golf course maintenance facility site, as we're calling it. This is an existing aerial of the site showing utilities running through. The existing road that the golf course maintenance uses kind of cuts through these rock outcroppings that line San Ildefonso. Sorry. This, as you'll see in the subsequent slides, this site's tricky. One, because of those rock outcroppings. They're large. We need to have our fire station at grade to that road. Additionally, these utilities are all overhead and they all come right through that same kind of channel. And so we additionally have a good amount of grade drop off back here. So the combination of those things really creates some problems for this site. This is a proximity study for Site B. We are approximately 260 feet away from the nearest house, kind of at the same grade level. They're a little bit lower. And then 140 feet straight across the road to the house up on Loma Linda. That house is elevated quite a bit, but as a straight line, it would be approximately 140 feet.
Excuse me.
Yes, sir.
What's the distance between that and the private road where that house? Yeah.
It's pretty close, right there. Right, as that road kind of cuts in. I think, this Google image shows it kind of curving in more.
Right.
My recollection is that it shoots, it's kind of goes straight off, yeah.
Yeah, so what's the distance between the...
I'm going to estimate, right, in this placement, it's probably about 20 feet.
Ooh.
And this is the conceptual site plan for Station B, or Site B. Again, you can see here the limits of disturbance are substantially larger. Quite a bit of fill needs to be brought in, and quite a bit of rock needs to be taken out up at this area. can actually see the road coming in right there. So it may be, between this point and there, we're definitely more than 40. I think it just depends on where you determine that road starts. It kind of comes off the shoulder, if I remember correctly. Yes?
Do you know where you would put your hazard lights, the street lights, for this site?
That would be part of kind of the next phase. This is definitely going to need them. Probably all 3 sites are going to need them. Definitely Site C as well. More than likely, they're going to go approximately right here and approximately right here, and then with some signaling for the people coming off of that road as well. Okay. In Site C, this is the existing site. It does not have the topographic challenges that the other 2 sites have, and utilities, generally speaking, run along the southern border right there. Approximate distance to the nearest residence is about 410 feet. And this is the conceptual site plan for this site. So this places the fire station at this little bend in the road as well. Signaling on this one's going to be pretty critical. So we would have signaling coming up the road, probably have additional signal up here, and the additional signal right there. Okay, any questions about the specific sites?
My biggest question is where did those alternatives other than the current site come from? Like, did you guys pick those, or who came up with?
Yeah, basically
that?
working with planning, there's really not a lot of apples in the bin. When we looked at that area that we had to be in, there really wasn't a whole lot. I mean, I don't think that there's any other site that we could even build a fire station besides those 3. And so we were just kind of like, we'll take a look at them. We kind of feel like the existing site's going to be the best at the end, but at least we've gone through the process to consider something other than that. And really, when we look at that district, you can't really go clear off into Rendijaha Canyon or clear up by the hospital or anything, because you get too far on one end of your district or the other, and then you limit your time to be able to get back. So it kind of had to be in that general area. There just wasn't a lot. I mean, you could take a hole on the golf course.
Did you look right across the street? I mean,
Yeah.
right across the street is.
Yeah. That was.
It would be a way better option if you needed to look at options.
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah.
because it really, I'm really glad to hear you had good input. But as a citizen, it really concerns me that those were seen as apples in the bucket to look at.
Yeah.
By whatever process it is, because it really says we don't value the uses that go on in those places. I mean, that's why we didn't look at the golf course. We value that higher or something. I don't know where that comes from, but those are really inappropriate places to be looking at for development. They're open space. And they have an existing use.
Where would you suggest within that, just a few blocks of the current station? Do you have any other sites?
Right across the street, like I said, would have been a way better option. But I don't know that it would have been a better option. But to somehow put these in the category that they were just land waiting there to be developed or something is really a little disturbing, because that's really not what the history of those and how those should be looked at by the county. Those should be looked at as open space that has a function, it has a role, it has a designation. Even labeling the thing golf course maintenance yard, that is not I don't know where that came from. I mean, seems to be some invention that's real concerning, because that's probably going to now be the folk name for that area, even though that's what they've done there is really bad. They just dump crap in there, and I don't know what allows them to dump crap in there. Frankly, I don't know why that's seen as an okay
way to be using that land currently, because they have stuff dumped all along their road that goes around the golf course. You know, I mean, they have lots of other places that are really their maintenance places. So I don't know. It stings me a little bit, though, to see open space treated as, hey, that's just land waiting to build something on, and it's available and should be looked at as an option. So I don't know. I'm really glad to hear it's kind of going in a better direction, I guess.
That came out at the first meeting, loud and clear. There were a lot of us.
Okay, any other questions about the sites? All right, let's talk about kind of conceptual estimates. So one real big thing is these sites are not designed, these buildings aren't designed. These are, I think these are more useful as a way to understand kind of broad brush changes in scope, to compare the sites to each other. These numbers, the way we presented these numbers in the last meeting, I think was a little confusing because we included some money for extra storage that would be on site A that we did not include on site B and site C. So we made an attempt to kind of equalize them a little bit more, and I think that's better for our decision-making process. But basically, we're assuming approximately 10,000 square feet of additional storage, and so that kind of brings the fire station cost pretty even. The fire station itself, the vertical cost once the site work and the utilities are done, the vertical cost is approximately equal across all three sites. Site improvements are where we get the variation. Site A, we're looking at about $1 million. Site B, we're looking at about $2 million. Site C, about $1 million. So, for the most part, A and C are in this are equal. The site B looks like it's going to be a little bit more. And if you look at those site plans and the conceptual grading plans, I think it's easy to understand why. There's just a lot of civil work that needs to go into that site. And then we did a site comparison matrix. Just to take kind of the high level indices from each of the sites and kind of sum them together in one page. So community support, clearly site A. Natural resources, which we spoke to a little bit more in the last meeting, is also a win for site A. Fire response time, there's very small differences between the three sites. All in all, we think it's negligible, so we call those equal. Construction cost, site A and site C look pretty good. Site B is more expensive. Then we added an additional metric of distance to residential, and site A also is the furthest away from residential, so we gave that a plus there. Any questions really quickly about this before I move on? Okay. All right, well, any questions? Yeah, yes, sir.
Yeah, what if anything is being done in your work to seek to minimize the footprint needed for the new capabilities that are needed and the improvements that are needed? Seems to me there's ways you can do it. It could be spread out all this, and I don't know what the storage is about. I don't know if that's fire department storage or
Yes.
what. So, I mean, could you speak to the approach that really would seek to minimize the footprint on the land so you don't need to, you can expand as little as possible into other areas?
Sure. I think site A is a good example of that. I mean, if the goal is to keep the limit of disturbance as tight as possible, going with retaining walls, large vertical walls, is the best way to do that. There's some downsides. Well, and even if we do that, we can't quite put the limits of disturbance right at the perimeter of those walls because we do need to have machinery in there as those walls are getting built. So some stuff is going to get, some ground is going to get a little bit torn out during the construction process. It'll be restored once the construction process is done. But yeah, the best way to do it is to go straight down with vertical walls. The downside to those are they're generally a lot more expensive to build, and they can create some safety issues, and they can create some visual issues. A lot of people don't like the height, the sight of a 30-foot tall wall in the middle of open space. But yeah, it's certainly the more we can within reason keep that limit of disturbance as small as possible, the lower our costs are, the faster our construction is, and the more efficient the whole process is, and definitely maintaining the active open space that we have around these buildings is of huge importance.
And Kevin, one of the things we're looking at there is multiple stories, because you know the grade drops off quite a bit, so having a lower story that's where that storage is, because that station serves as kind of the warehouse for all the other stations. None of the other stations have any of that, so all of our hose, our gear, our wildland stuff, anything that we supply other stations, bunker gear, a lot of that stuff's right there. So we don't really have an alternative to put it in a tent or get rid of it, so we kind of have to build it in, but we could maybe stack 2 stories, maybe even 3 stories. We'll get to that point once we get the site done, but I like the idea too of keeping that footprint smaller so we don't intrude back, because it gets more expensive. The farther we go, the lower it gets, and there's more fill and a lot of problems there. So we're more than willing to kind of say, hey, let's do this. The one thing as the chief that I've done in the past is we brought in campers for a while, and it's a disaster when you try to put firefighters in there and they try to get some rest, and it's cold, and the utilities, and it's just like, it's kind of like, we're going to make you live like medieval people for a year when we build this. And so that's the reason we're going to try to maintain the existing station. And I think the other thing that we'll push in the design phase is try to take that existing station when we get done with it. The thing's got a lot of structural issues, so get rid of that. Move all the parking. Now parking today comes off of that road, and people that visit the station and employees park coming off of Diamond. We're hoping that we can come off the side road and have parking be down below where that existing station is. So we kind of don't have all the access to the road other than just fire trucks. So we limit that, because it's a busy road. But we can do that, I think, in a 2-story configuration, or maybe even 3, where we put, I've seen stations where they'll put the sleeping areas and showers on the top floor, the business on the main floor, and then storage down below. And then trucks we can't stack. They're going to just take up so much space. They're just big and heavy, and they can, they've got to have fill under them, and they've got to come out at grade so they can, access the street. One of the things that we looked at to kind of keep costs down in the design, and we're not there yet, but on that site is a lot of new fire stations like to have drive-through bays. And to do a drive-through bay in that site would mean a lot more disturbance to create some kind of driveway that goes square around the back. And so I told David right away, we can back in, make it deep enough that we can get 2 trucks in there, we'll put our front lines in front. But if we do that, then we're going to disturb a huge area and probably get into the trails to have a driveway that goes square around and comes through the back. So we're kind of considering trying to make our disturbance area as small as we can get it. So, and that'll be on the next phase, and we'll try to share that once council approves the site. Once we get into that, we'll come back and do some other public meetings and say, hey, here's kind of where we're at. This is what we're looking at. We're almost ready to bid. You guys have feedback on the design. Obviously, we can't have everybody design it, because we can never get there, but we can definitely bring it back once we get our core group of people looking at that. And that is a consideration, on how do we not expand clear beyond and make this all 1 story with everything on 1 level. So.
Yes, sir.
With the existing station, what's going to happen to the existing station and the annex?
Well, the annex, I think we're going to try to repurpose for the PD. They have a lot of vehicles. If you go by their shop, they've got a lot of stuff that sets outside right now, and they just need interior storage. And with the bays we'll have on this, I think we can take the stuff that we have there now. And we're actually building 3 new stations on Lannel as we speak. One's under construction, the second one's almost ready. David's actually the architect on that too, so we've kind of made this a bigger picture. DOE's paying for all of that, which is great, but we'll have some space to get that trucks out of the annex and into those stations and into this station, and then we can give that to PD. And I don't think there'd be a lot of cost for that, and we haven't really looked at that, but maybe a small substation where they have an office in there, and then they keep all they have the bomb truck, they have that Bearcat thing, they've got a cell tower, a trailer, and emergency management has a couple of vehicles that currently kind of sit outside. And so we're hoping to kind of just transition that over there. And then David talked a little bit about trying to improve trailhead parking to where if you want to go walk the trails down there, right now you don't really have a place to park unless you come in there and park on the fire station. But have some dedicated parking where people can use the trails and access it from down below, which would be safer. So.
Since you mentioned the other fire stations, I went to a presentation by Bev Simpson, I think, the other night. She's talking about the new EOC that you're gonna construct down down at White Rock.
Yeah.
And I was wondering, you know, if you're doing that, I mean, why don't you put the EOC here? Or why don't you have, like your administrative offices here, or why aren't they co-located with one of the fire stations?
Part of it's the way that our cooperative agreement is with the Department of Energy. You know, we pay rent here and they pay a portion of that, a big portion of that. It gets a little bit different when we own that property on how to pay for it in the billing, and so that's part of it. And this location for us works really well, being across from the county administration building, because HR and finance and the county manager's office is here, so this works good for us. But the EOC, I think, and this would be more of a Bev answer, but I think the reason that they're looking at it down there is this is a bigger wildland urban interface piece up here, and they do have a backup dispatch center, so if for some reason we have to evacuate Los Alamos and it's under attack from wildfire, that place is probably a little bit more easy to protect. There's less, you know, stuff to impinge on it, so they think that that can be a little more stable. And they're looking at a grant for that, so that's quite a few years off.
Right.
But that's, I think, the reason that Bev's looked down there is because they think it's a little bit easier to protect in that area where Fire Station 3 is in the event of a wildfire, which is our biggest threat in Los Alamos.
She herself is actually moving out of the police department down there.
Yeah, they have some office down there in the county. I'm not sure where that's at, but it's down there in a county building down there. Do you know, Sophia, where that's at?
So back to the Site A, so the old station itself, you're gonna repurpose the annex. The
Yeah.
old station itself is gonna be reused?
No, I'd get rid of it. That would be
You
part of
would
the
take it
parking
down.
that we've used. We've transferred that into parking. So then all of our parking for our employees and visitors and people down there would come into that area versus coming off of Diamond and having to enter that busy road. They would use the road next to it, so.
You're bringing up very good points. So this is part of, as we move forward after council's direction to further explore existing site, we will be evaluating all these things. We will be sitting down with all the stakeholders, trying to figure out what else needs to be done, so that, you know, that will come as we start developing that further.
Yeah, my recommendation would be to not put money into that station because it's got some structural issues and it would serve better for parking than anything else. And yeah.
So then it seems that Site A is gonna cost you more money than the other sites, because you're gonna have to D&D that.
There may be some of that, yeah.
So you probably need to add that into the cost to your, of how much Site A is gonna cost you. So instead of being 13 million, it's,
Well, we're hoping to donate it to Sophia's department, and then it'll be her problem. We're done. So,
It'll be
but
a
yeah,
county
you're right, Bob.
facility.
It's gonna be part of the ongoing cost if we do demo it and create some parking down there.
Presumably you demo it anyway, right?
Whether you did it, it's on the other side.
So I don't know, I don't see how that's factored on.
Yeah.
I want one comment I'd like to make, is I'd like to compliment you guys on this particular project, publishing the full survey information, the people's comments. That doesn't happen very often in my experience with the county projects. And that's a really great attribute of this. It's the way it should be, and hopefully could be a model for other kinds of projects that go on, because you don't really get to see what people are having to say very often. So that's been a really plus for me in this particular project.
Part of that's driven from the county and their processes, but we're also an accredited department, and so to be accredited, there's certain performance objectives that we have to do, and that's one of them is sharing that kind of information. So we're kind of bound by our accreditation to do things like that. So when we have these kind of projects, we kind of have to, because we said we would, you know.
Yeah, there's this open space project going on, and it's kind of a black hole.
Yeah.
There's nothing, there's very little other than summary information about what's been collected that's been fed back. So.
Well, and we look at it a little differently because, you know, I'm the chief today, but I'm not going to be the chief forever, and I'll be somewhere. But you guys are citizens, and so this thing that we do for you as your employees is going to be here for a long time, so we want to get it right, because, you know, the people that live here are going to have to live with this fire station project for 70 years is about the average age of a fire station in the United States. Some they preserve in the East Coast because they're in old districts and they do it longer, but typically about 70 years is what we've learned recently to fire station design conference that we went to. And so it's probably gonna be 50, 60 years. The ones on the lab are actually older than that, so.
7, not 17.
Yeah, 50 is about a good age, but, so yeah, it's probably at least a 50-year monument that we're gonna have in our community that needs to be done right.
All right. Okay, so next steps. A few things. One, this is the project website. It has been, I think, moved up the hierarchy a little bit on the county's website. But you can also enter that in. That'll take you straight to it. You can also scan this QR code, and that will also take you straight to the website. Please take the survey. Survey is still open, as we mentioned, and you can scan that QR code to get straight to the survey. If you have any additional comments, you can email them to lacpw@lacnm.us. And those, as you've seen, are being responded to. Each one is being looked at. So that's a great resource. The council meeting is currently scheduled for the 12th of November. We really hope that you guys come and you bring your friends and family as well to support this process. If you are not able to attend, there is an e-comment feature on the website. I know Julie has printed out some handouts on how to use the e-comment feature, and they're back there. Tricky part is that it opens the Friday before, which in this case will be on 11/8, and then we'll close at noon on 11/12. You can formally issue your comments there as well. With that, any other questions, concerns?
I'll add one more thing to that. Tomorrow, with request of a few members of the public, I am taking them over to the existing fire station site, and I will be walking them through where this potential, the location of the potential fire station would be. If you are interested, please join me. I will be at the parking lot at Fire Station 4 at 3 o'clock. So you'll have time to walk through the site, and we can look at the trails, we can look at any other concerns as you wish. So that's tomorrow at 3 o'clock. You can let me know, and I can send you the meeting invite as I've sent it to other people. So we have a handful of people joining us tomorrow. Right. Well,
Okay.
Thank you so much
Yeah.
for coming. Thank you so much for your input. We really appreciate that. Please spread the word, let other people know to take the survey, and that email comes directly to me. I'll be happy to respond to any other questions or concerns. Thank you very much. Have a good evening.